Welcome back. Foundation first is our topic today. We want to talk about why transformation fails when you build it on broken systems. I am so excited to have three ProVoice experts back with me here today, starting off with Vanessa Dodds. She's a Fractional and CEO executive. She specializes in change management and business optimization. I've got John Hoffman here. He is a creative producer and also does one heck of a job helping people with experiences. He's an experience expert. And then finally, Jason Winters. He's a project management specialist and business advisor. So glad to have you all here. We're going to kick it off with a little mic check. We want to make sure those things are working okay. So what I'd like in 20 words or less, starting with you, Vanessa, is tell me about a time when you saw transformation failing because of the broken systems and what'd you do about it?
So for me, a few extra words here, JT, but transformation has become so taboo. It's like the Charlie Brown wah, 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 wah in our ears. So I think first we need to realize it isn't going anywhere. So we might need to do a little bit of a mind shift and start calling it, a necessary change, pivot, or shift due to the disruptions, innovation, and technology advancements. So back to your question. Over 2 decades of cross-sector experience, I've seen what happens when systems aren't in place. For example, I was leader on a regional initiative. While it looked very successful externally, and it was, thankfully, it collapsed on the back end. We were dying. The teams were burnt out. We were frustrated because there was no digital infrastructure at all in place for an 800 plus mile radius workforce initiative. And I also worked with a $6 billion brand that stalled under conflicting decision rights and unrecognized digital literacy skill gaps and operational gaps. And lastly, a $47 billion initiative with an agency that stalled without governance or anything in place. And guess what? The lesson's clear across it all. Without fixing the systems first, the biggest initiatives cannot survive.
Well, when we get into the work it or waste it segment, I know exactly where Vanessa's going to fall on that debate. Fantastic. That is awesome. John, what about you? Tell me about a time where it was failing and what'd you do about it?
Well, for me, it's a little different because in advertising events, television production, everything's built on building the equipment, the location. It's home building, right? You buy the land, you make a plan, you hire a builder, you build a house. Makes sense. Foundation first. My business, sometimes you put the roof on before you have the foundation. So it's okay that it doesn't happen in order. Business doesn't happen in order. Life doesn't happen in order. You adjust to it. But the important thing is that the people that are running it understand when things are coming in tangentially, how they work together, and then how to fix it. So I see it. It's a microcosm production for a bigger system for a company. It's really communication and then having the right people in place to make sure that things are built and are ready to launch. There's a big thing in tech where they'll launch 1.0 and then fix 2.0, 3.0. I can't do that. I'm live when I go live. There's no 2.0. When an event goes hot, it's hot. So we have to anticipate all those problems and try to launch before we're no different than tech. We're not always 100% ready, but we have contingency plans and ways to kind of tap dance with it. That's showbiz, right? The show must go on. So I got a lot of experience in building things and seeing what works and doesn't. I can tell you that. And I can see a lot of companies who do it well. And usually it's because of a company ethos too. So we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I love it. And, we were talking before the show, I think your experience, you've been dealing with this your whole life. Like you said, that's always been that way. But I think a lot of industries and companies have always been able to rely on system and a slower process and less of the wrenches that you deal with. So I'm excited to get your perspective of that hot seat. Jason, what's been your story? What's your experience?
Well, I work in the energy sector, so it is super document intensive, regulations, you name it. And I remember the huge project I had in South America, over $200 million. We wanted to migrate legacy document systems that were in Excel, that were either even in Word and super ancient systems to this online clickable system. The problem is that as normal projects go in the energy sector, you have things across the world. So we had actually manufacturers in all continents, you can imagine, more than 20 countries, sending products to Brazil, each managing documents their own way and in their own language and with their own sets of criteria that they were going to use. And the only problem is when you try to merge those all, easier said than done. So we had lots of failures at the beginning. And of course, the more you delay a document in our business, that is money. That is penalties. That is getting in trouble with the government. That is getting tax bills that you don't want to get because we didn't really thoroughly think it through. on the first iteration. So I agree with what John was saying as well. Although in John, you have to be ready to go at the beginning. But we said, okay, well, let's fail fast if we can. Because again, energy sector, we typically embrace technologies slower than other industries. However, on the technological side for products and services, cutting edge. But for the business type processes, not so much. So they didn't even think, there were so many blind spots, I can't even tell you. So we ended up saying, hey, let's just do a complete restart, get everybody in the room. This is before, obviously, teleconferencing and getting in before COVID. So everyone flying across the world, getting into a room and saying, okay, let's figure this out. And let's go to rudimentary definitions of key things, because you could say, oh, I want a certificate. Well, define the certificate. What kind of certificate? And you go down so many rabbit holes. So you have to have a really strong person saying, I hear you, I hear you, I hear you. This is what it's going to be going forward. So very type A. I know, JT, you like that. But we could not just take an out-of-the-box solution, feel like that we could just readily customize that in 2 or 3 months, and it was going to work on a project that had thousands and thousands of documents to manage.
Oh, I can't wait to hear more about this. And so let's move into the next segment, which is called Signal Boost. I really want you each to shine the light and give some props to a book, an idea, a concept, whatever you want to, as it relates to this idea of transformation. So let's start with you. Who should we go next with? Let's go with John. We'll put it back to you in the hot seat there, John. What do you shine the light on? What helps you manage the chaos?
Understanding the project from the beginning. I had a conversation the other day with somebody about what is a good brief. And a good brief is brief. I want to know emotionally what the outcome is. I want to know what the business objective is. I want to know a tight parameter of what we're trying to achieve and then work outward from it. So what I find is people will give you a 30-page kind of research deck and tell you it's their strategy. That's not strategy. That's research. Strategy is I'm trying to affect somebody's behavior, drive them towards I read this thing yesterday. 80% of Harvard Business, 80% of people buy the product that comes to mind first in a category where they buy it. How important is that then that your brand be top of mind? Mm-hmm. So in a world now where you can engage with a brand anywhere, online, on the street, anywhere, how important is that engagement? And this is what I talk about a lot with people with events. Sometimes in my world, again, I'm speaking through my lens, events are at the bottom of the funnel. And the funnel's gone. There's no funnel. You can engage anywhere in the life cycle. So the event is no longer a tag on. It's no longer a water bottle and a handkerchief at a run. An event might be the time where you're doing the consideration of buying a brand, period. So it's so much more important that I understand the context and the outcome and a lot of things. I hope this has contexture for you guys, because it's really getting it distilled so I can understand what the wants and needs are. And, we got to make sure. Go ahead.
I'm going to interrupt you because I actually think it does. I think when you think about people planning, they get so into the planning, they're not first agreeing on that outcome, like you said, right? If that isn't universally accepted and understood, then think about how much can go wrong in the build, in the structure. So I agree with you. I think everyone has to clearly understand the ultimate end game and be in agreement on it, don't you think?
Yeah, well, that's why I'm talking about when you get an oversized document with an objective in it, you will find contradictory points.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like getting feedback from a group of people. The number one thing and the number 4 thing that they want changed are diametrically opposed. So, at a certain point, and it comes back to what I'll call leadership and hierarchy, somebody has to be the go-to. It has to be somebody's vision, and they have to answer to the questions when people like me ask them what we're real, let me get into the nitty gritty and ask you a couple of questions, because where the rubber hits the road is when you start to parse it. I got a big objective. Now let's break it down. And when you break it down, you start asking specific questions is where you start to really understand what matters.
Very interesting. I think we're going to talk more about that in terms of strategy. I like that. Jason, I'm bouncing over to you. You manage huge PMOs, huge. So what's working in that space? Like what's vital these days to handle this change and transformation? I'll
first say that, Vanessa completely right about everything being a transformation today, and everything is a project. And if we're not thinking like project managers, which fortunately I am, then we're missing the boat. So John, completely read your point. What is the end? Start with the end in mind and then work backwards. So are we able to do that? And there's a lot of techniques in project management that PMOs can actually help, especially at the C-suite level, such as WBS, which is a work breakdown structure. And I guess every time I say that, recently, they're like, if I hear the word WBS one more time, forget it. I mean, why are you telling me this? Because basically, if you don't know what needs to be done, now you don't have to be so granular that you're not able to manage it, but within a reasonable time period, a list of manageable activities. So let's say your WBS, and it tells you the full from start to finish, different project life cycles, for example. What should we be doing at the sales stage? What should we be doing during manufacturing? What should we be doing to install this product? What should we be doing to service our client? Then you map all those activities out. There should be from A to Z, and then after that, we apply what we call a RACI chart, which is basically roles and responsibilities. So who's responsible? Who's accountable? Who should be consulted? Who should be informed? So there you map out all of your key stakeholders, across this way. And then down the line, you have all the activities. And then you sit everybody in a room and say, okay, this is the plan. So to your point, JT, we say plan the work the plan. But in project management terms, you would actually spend probably 70% of your time planning if you have that luxury. On transformation projects, you don't always have that luxury, of course. So how do you condense that? And I have that for the next segment here. But on this one, I would say if you don't know what work actually needs to be done, there are many gaps. You will fail somewhere. You will miss something. A stakeholder will get really upset about it. If you have everybody in the same room or in the same virtual room, everyone signs off on it. Yes. I need a show of hands. Okay. Can you disagree? Of course. But we'll have to make a decision at some point. So what are your deliverables? What is the concrete deliverable, whether it's a digital, virtual deliverable or a physical deliverable? Are we all in agreement? That is exactly what needs to be delivered. And to your point, John, about MVPs, I have something about that a little bit later as well. On your 1.0, your 2.0, that's fine. But have a list of everything that needs to be done. It must be completely thorough and know who's responsible for what.
Fascinating. So two totally different industries and still talking the same language. Vanessa, are you in the same boat or do you have a different take?
I'm overall in the same boat, that's for sure. But like what I've learned across industries, I worked in the nonprofit, corporate, and government space, is that transformation, whether it be digital, any change initiative transformation, only works, as I've said before, you heard me say, foundations are strong. I'm not saying they have to be solid, but they got to be really strong. They can change. But that's why I built the Fix the System First framework. And the first step in my mind should always be analysis. Before choosing a platform or anything to scale, you need to evaluate your existing systems. I mean, you need to know how decisions are made, where accountability even sits, where governance rhythms actually operate, and then the operational processes that carry the work. And, what I'm hearing from these guys too, and like I say, you really need to know your internal voice of your team, but also your external voice of the customers to even know what's working and what's not. Often leaders are overlooking these two analysis pieces because they're just eager to move fast and they want to adapt to the latest trend. Across my work from, like I said, regional initiatives, multinational corporations, public sector, the lesson repeats. Transformation doesn't fail of a weak vision. It's really the poor intent and failure of the underlying systems and the processes, and the voices weren't listened to of their teams and everything. That's when it fails. So the trend I see helping organizations now is finally slowing down and, yes, doing that analysis piece. Because when you align systems, decision rights, governance, and operating processes and those voices with clear metrics before layering on any transformation, trust me, they don't only survive, they thrive, and they are able to scale. So in my mind, that's the shift that leaders need to do right now and embrace.
I love it. So on another podcast with Ron Stokes, another Pro Voice, he brought up this concept of the tyranny of the urgent. And how many times have we seen an executive be like, that's what we need and get it done tomorrow, like you just talked about. Yet I heard really great themes from all of you here today. Like, can we make sure we're all on the same page and we know what the end result is? Do we have everything in check before we do these crazy things? Like, do we know what's working and not working? I'm so excited to hear you all talking about this and hopefully getting them to slow down. And I think I want to hear more from all of you on that, on how that operates. That being said, let's grab a quick word from our sponsors. And when we come back, we're going to do Work It or Waste It, where we find out whether you have to fix everything first or if you can do it as a work in progress. This is an executive wake-up call. If you're a professional that's feeling overlooked and underutilized and quite frankly invisible, listen up, this one's for you. These days, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. You need visibility in order to attract the best opportunities. So if you feel like you've been stuck in the executive wasteland, you need to start using your Pro Voice. Your Pro Voice is a modern form of personal branding, and it's how you make sure that you get the best opportunities, raises and promotions, fractional work, and any other kind of opportunity that you're looking for in your latter half of your career. Executives today need to stand out. And if you don't understand how to do that with your Pro Voice, you are not going to get the respect and the opportunities you want and deserve. If you're interested in working directly with me and my team, you can do that with our Pro Voice platform. And right now, because you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to give you a discount. Pro Voice 50 will get you $50 a month off the monthly membership. Cancel at any time. And as a bonus, use the Pro Voice 50 and you will get a 30-minute one-on-one call with me to kick off your Pro Voice. And that is a $399 value. So what are you waiting for? It's time to use your Pro Voice to get the respect that you want and deserve, but more importantly, get the opportunities that you need. Sign up today at workitdaily.com, use Pro Voice 50, and I'll see you there. Welcome back, everybody. So Work It or Waste It is the chance for my team here to debate this idea of should organizations fix absolutely everything before doing any transformation, or is it fixing and transformation, I don't know, in tandem, like a bike? We'll see. I'm going to pick on Jason first. Jason, what are your thoughts on this?
I think most of the time, right now, everything is so accelerated. And to your point, Vanessa, everything is a new thing. It's a new transformation. We want to get it over the finish line. We have transformation fatigue. People can only change so much. So if we're not structuring, like, what are the most important transformations? Are we prioritizing them? What is the biggest bang for our buck? And those things can actually be structured while you're building and flying the plane at the same time, as we say in project management terms. So first thing I like to do is I like to use a project charter or a transformational charter where you say, this is what we want to accomplish. We have phase gates or stage gates. This is how much we want to progress. You can, weave in some business agility concepts to make sure that you're doing it, fail fast along the way. But, and I'll have to pick on John again about saying the MVP. What does the MVP look like? So I have 2 software transformations right now going on in my company, and we're debating that right now. Is 1.0 enough? Mm-hmm. Or how quickly can we get to 2.0? Because I don't have budget, people, or time for what I want to get accomplished between 1.0 and 2.0. So then I say, that's great, but I need KPIs. I need OKRs. I need, what do you want? Adoption rates? Is it 40%? Is it 70%? Can you structure it over time? It's not going to be a light switch you just turn on and it's 100% adoption immediately. So let's be reasonable. Let's understand our organization, the culture. I think the other day I posted a video about culture eating strategy. That happens. So we have the best intent. And Vanessa, you said, hey, let's jump on the bandwagon. This is like a really great trend. Let's do this. Can my company even do that? Maybe it is not even it's not even possible because the culture will not allow it.
Fascinating. I love that. And great points, right? Like, I think you have to understand your company and its limitations for sure. Such a big part of this. Let's jump to you, Vanessa. What do you think?
Yeah, so from my experience, I've seen whether it be digital change, any transformation, I've seen them win, I've seen them fail, but the difference always comes down to whether operational foundations are addressed early. So again, I've said this before, you're probably going to hear me say it again. When you build on top of broken processes, unclear decisions, and missing governance, you end up with costly reworks and frustrated team members. Hands down, bottom line, always. Again, it's listening to your people. It's hearing what's going on. It's being open to that communication. And I've watched organizations really spend more time fixing things when they really could have avoided that on the front end if they just did a simple analysis. So no, you can't ignore the foundation. But I'm also very realistic that you can't sit around and wait for perfection. Doesn't happen. You know what I mean? Systems aren't static. They change with markets, workforce shifts, any technology transformation, everything's moving, especially right now and moving fast. That's why I really frame transformation, or as I say, shift, pivot, whatever we want to call it, a cycle, not a one-time project. So you need to fix what's broken Then you build, then you come back, you analyze again, and you modify. That's a process that has to be continual. And that's what I believe supports a strategy, that holds things together. So in my mind, to me, the right approach is both strengthening the foundation before you layer on any type of transformation, whether it's digital or change initiative, and then you commit to revisiting those systems regularly. That's the way transformation doesn't just launch, it lasts.
I love it. John, come on, be the contrarian point of view here. Like, you're in such a different industry, right? This is not business operations. Like, this is fly by the seat of your pants stuff that you're doing. So can you do foundations every single time? Like, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, it's not as much fly by the seat of your pants as you should think, because you might be talking about in the moment. Mm-hmm. But first, I was thinking about what you guys were talking about. One of my favorite quotes, and it was from Alice of Alice in Wonderland, said, "If you don't know where you're going, you might just get there." So that's, again, and the reason I say it's not so in the moment, I've worked for brands where we've done total rebrands, relaunch, and had to go start with the brand. They tell us who they are, who their customer is, what's going on. Then when we go out and talk to the customers, wrong. Vanessa's point, foundation's way off. Your assumption of their perception of you is not their perception of you. So you want to talk about, and the thing that happens for me sometimes in where I am in the product chain, and I can be in many places, but if we're at the end or we're doing an event, the branding has been done, a lot of stuff has been done. People think when they approve that deck, that's the project. That's the starting point for me. They say, okay, go. The next time they want to see it is the show. They don't know that there's going to be 1,000 small decisions between now and then. Those small decisions, I think, Jason, you talked about it, and Vanessa, you just said revisit. The little course corrections are as important as the course, because it goes off the rails anywhere and quickly. I think what you may be talking about or alluding to, JT, is on a set or on a show or in a live environment, something happens, you got to get your mind right there. Send out the dancing bear. You have those things on standby and you're a little more adept. I would say my average workday probably has a lot more decisions and organization than most people. When you have 70, 80, 200 people all in unison that don't know each other 3 days ago that are working together today like a machine. Yeah, there's a lot of communication. But the funny thing about my business is, in the event world and the wonderful, crazy people in television production is, man, they know that when you put them together right, you'd think they're working together for 30 years. I can't tell you the number of times clients have said to me, "God, thank God you had your guys." I'm like, "My guys, I met them 2 days ago." And it's because of you giving them clear direction, right? Giving them clear direction. The other last thing I'll say about transformation when it comes into branding world and related to me is brands do rebrands 12, 18, 24 months. It takes them a long time to really get that message out of major brand, out to the consumer. Well, the quickest way to change your brand, the quickest way to change the way you are perceived is change who you are, right? And we can do that in events and television and things. We can react quickly. Like, I can't tell you how much intel has come from a live event that's informed the brand team about what's really going on in the world after all their research. I mean, we can act this way right away. But the key thing is, and I want to ask you this, JT, because you're in the world that you go in and talk to people that are staffing for brands and have been in this world for a long time. When you guys talk to each other at that elite level, what brands do you respect? And I bet you the reason you respect them is the corporate culture is awesome. People there are pulling in the same direction.
I think you nailed it. It's so funny you know that. And of course, I was badgering you, hoping you'd be contrarian, but it doesn't surprise me because when I think about the success that you've had, you keep coming back to all these years of experience are foundational things that need to be in place in order to build it properly and be able to pivot and do these things. And I think I heard that from all of you here today. Mm-hmm. And to answer your question, yes, when you go in and you see an organization, a brand, whoever that you really respect, they've put the work in. They know who they are, right? They've got pillars. There are things that they follow. And it's amazing how many companies don't want to do that. Right? They just want to be able to go at it. And it doesn't work if you don't have that form of structure. So I think all four of us are on the same page, which I love. It's amazing. So let's talk about your industries, though. 3 very different industries. I would like to hear from each of one of you, and I'm going to pick on Vanessa first. What's working in your specific industry right now when it comes to this?
So what I'm seeing, especially in my work as a fractional executive, is that leaders have had to change their approach to transformation. Digital, yes, but all transformation. Because change initiatives alone they came out that things weren't quite right with the remote and hybrid operations, really exposing how fragile many of those business foundations truly were. So for years, companies were able to mask it. They had that blanket, so to speak, of the office wall, but then you could walk down the hall, you could talk to and have many conversations, talk to your coworker. You had the ad hoc fixes. While they were time consuming, they were serving the purpose and they were working, right? But once we shifted into remote and hybrid work models, those cracks became glaring. So suddenly, without strong processes and clear accountability and shared systems, teams struggled really to collaborate. Leaders really struggled to make decisions quickly. And customers really felt that inconsistency in their experience then too. So there's when I see many, many, many shifts happening, which is occurring right now, all in tandem, unfortunately, instead of rushing straight to new platforms, new pivots, new, organizations really need to lean on leaders like me or in that fractional or contracting role to step back, do that analysis if they don't want to do it. They really need to have that first. It's about diagnosing where workflows break down, clarifying that governance, really addressing employee and digital technology learning gaps, and reestablishing those decision rights. So that when any change initiative, transformation, digital tools, anything is introduced, they're reinforcing it with a strong foundation and their buy-in to it, rather than just patching over a weak one. So for me, what I mainly see as the difference today is recognition that it isn't a one and done exercise. Remote and hybrid work, they're going to continue to evolve. Customer experiences are going to continue to rise, and new technologies are going to continue to merge. And guess what? Disruptions, they're constant. So really the approach has to be cyclical. I've said it before. You're going to hear me say it again before we get off of here, I'm sure. You need to analyze, you need to fix, you need to implement, and then reanalyze. In my experience, that's how organizations really move from that reactive fixes to being a resilient operation with real foundations that are sustainable for change.
Yeah, I like that you're talking about it's consistent. It's not a one or done, right? It's a habit, right? It's not a one-time event. I love it. I also just want to comment on the fact that you mentioned fractional. So a big part of what we talk about on ProVoice is the power of fractional work and bringing in executives, for example, like all of you, who have fresh eyes, which I think is just, you're going to see this explode. My personal opinion is that fractional work is going to explode and that companies that really want to succeed are going to hire a lot more fractional executives with fresh eyes to come in and help them see what they can't see. And I just really want to quickly say, it reminds me of people tell you, the power cord's running down the middle of the hallway. And maybe the first day you notice it and you step over it, but a month later, you don't even remember that it's there. Like, that's the thing I always think about for all these executives and people listening out there. This might be the time to fix your foundation, is to bring someone external in who can see the cord, who can see the problems and actually do things like that. And I love what you said with respect to that, Vanessa. It was awesome.
Thank you.
John, what's working in your space?
It's interesting because I was listening to Vanessa so much, thinking about the other side of the world. I mean, my space moves quick. Brands are built and come out of nowhere, and a lot of initiatives are long planned. There are some shortcuts that are being taken in the business that, Vanessa talked about. I loved when we were all in a bullpen, when we would be working on a project and there'd be 8 people at desks, like your non-hierarchy office. So you could walk in and go, everybody stop. I don't care what you're doing. We just lost our location. Doesn't matter, doesn't matter anything that's going. It's so hard when everybody's in a different environment to put the brakes on or have what now the tech world calls a stand-up. We do those every day. It's lunchtime, everybody. Let's go to lunch, and we're just going to make sure because our problems are interrelated. And what might fix this and might fix that. And so I'm a big fan of bringing people together. People don't scout enough anymore. They don't get in a room with the right people anymore. They do deals on the phone. I'll tell you a story, a quick story, a big deal. I did a big deal with a major performer playing for a major network at a show. And they were doing some pretty outlandish things at the show with branding and props. And the manager and the guys, we're talking 7-figure deal, they're agreeing. And I'm not saying anything bad about agents. I love them. Some of my favorite people. But they're more on the sales side of things. And we're talking about some stuff. And I said, do you guys mind if while you're saying all this is cool that I record this meeting? so that I have a record, because I'm pretty sure you guys aren't going to be there tonight in the show. And I want to make sure that the artist team understands that artist management agreed with this. Everybody sat up, looked at me. Of course, I was the jerk for the second, but I was making a point to them like, guys, this is everything to my client, and you're glad handing it. You're making it, don't worry about it. You got this big performer. Everything else will be great. Yeah, but this big performer is going to cast a shadow over the entire event when it comes to what the room looks like and what everything else happens. So let's not just assume that this is swept under the rug. So that doesn't happen unless you're in the room with people, unless you can stop a conversation and go, there are a couple of key points I want to make. And I've seen it happen more and more and more when people make remote deals and they finally get together. They just haven't looked each other in the eye to understand the details.
Yeah, I love that you talk about putting them all in the room together, but I think you also just revealed something really important, is that you have to be comfortable speaking out. And I think that's an art that's starting to be lost as well. Not only have we not been together anymore, but we're also afraid to speak up and say things. And so you get this yes culture in a useless meeting, and then still things are broken, right? So I love your commentary there. Jason, let's jump to you.
I'm sorry, JT. I just want to say one fast thing there.
Yeah.
I used to do this exercise where after a meeting, I'd go to people and go, okay, what are we doing? And there'd be like 6 people in the meeting. Nobody had the same idea.
You get my
So
point.
I got to the point where I'd say it in the meeting. That's before everybody leaves the room. Let's make sure everybody knows what we're doing. And again, they thought I was a pain in the ass, but the jobs got done.
Yeah. And hence the theme of today. I'm seeing a theme. Jason, I'm jumping over to you. What's working in your world right now?
Well, happy to just respond to what John just said about welcome to the meeting that is about nothing, like Dilbert. Remember in the old days, it's like, so if we don't structure, what is this meeting about? Do we have the right people in the room and all that kind of stuff? And that's great. I'll say, in the energy sector, we talk with governmental entities, large multinationals. We have companies that have thousands and thousands of employees with many locations. So it's harder to drive lasting change, and especially as quickly as the CEOs that are being held to their quarterly results and not for long-term profits and long-term strategy. So I think, first of all, we have to recognize that is the elephant in the room. And then we should be getting into the C-suite's head and saying, what are you being held accountable to for the next 3 months, for the next 6 months, for the next year? Okay, based on that, I can get these initiatives across the finish line for you or not, which means we have to be flexible. So if you look at project management, it used to be waterfall, old way of working, only way of working. Early 2000s, Agile comes out. Let's be Agile. Let's make it as fast as possible. Then it was hybrid. And now there are so many different ways of working, which I'm associated with the Project Management Institute, who came out just a few years ago with a new concept of a talent triangle, whereby we say, okay, there is no one way of working, by the way. You have to be flexible. You have to be adaptable. So what I love about the new PMO certification that I got earlier this year is, okay, we can assess what the company needs, but it will not fit into a nice, neat model that has been structured by the likes of any organization, including ISO or APR or whatever. So we have to say, okay, we can be selectively controlling here. We can be a consultant there. We can be in the middle over here. Let's adapt to your business need. So we exist for the business. So the business needs to tell us, what are your business needs? And in the manufacturing world, it's one thing. In services, it's something different. But maybe we have to adapt our needs to different divisions. So in a company, I had 5 divisions. Each division would actually be managing their projects in a little bit different way. However, to solve it, we instituted an enterprise level governance structure where we could say, okay, there are some minimal things and targets and processes that everyone needs to follow. We will allow for certain customization to get us across the finish line. However, be cognizant of our cultural needs, because right now I'm working for the most diverse company I've ever worked for, over 100 nationalities. And I thought, hey, I'm pretty, internationally savvy. But when you meet someone from South Sudan and then Djibouti and Tajikistan, it's like, wait a minute, this is a whole different level. So are they really understanding what needs to happen? And to your point, John, about, having things in writing, I think is generational. Now everybody's like text, write a message. And how many times does that get us all in trouble because we misinterpreted the message? And nothing drives me more crazy to see someone on a Teams and it says typing, and they're spending 5 minutes typing. Pick up the phone and let's talk about it, and then type and confirm what we just agreed to. However, culturally speaking, that is a challenge because we think, well, everyone speaks English, or everyone should be able to understand English in an international, multinational company. So therefore, we'll just issue an edict and it will all happen magically. It does not work that way. So if we don't spend the time and the effort to really decide, there will be certain countries like Brazil, certain countries like in other countries of Latin America that speak Spanish. If you don't have the message in Portuguese or Spanish, it's not going to work. It will not stick.
Okay, first of all, I'm excited to hear that the project management world is now certifying more flexibility, more in terms of choice. That is very exciting to hear. And we'll have to have another episode to talk more about that. But I also love that you brought into this little conversation, we haven't even started to touch on the diversity of your people, right? And that whole factor that plays into this, which I thought was wonderful that you highlighted. This is great stuff. Listen, we need to go for a quick sponsor break, but when we come back, each one of these experts is going to get 30 seconds to give us their power pitch on philosophies with respect to change and transformation. Stay tuned.
Visibility is everything in today's world, but getting noticed, that's tougher than ever. AI is making it easy for you to apply, to post, to connect, but it's also flooding the market with noise. Recruiters, potential clients, decision makers, they're swamped. They can't meet with everyone. And so many great professionals are getting overlooked every single day. That's why creating a strong professional brand is so important. But you might be thinking, I don't know where to begin. I don't know what content will work best. I don't even have the time to figure this all out. That's where McCoy comes in. You bring your experience and your goals, and McCoy AI will turn them into clear, compelling messages that make people pay attention. It helps you find the words, the proof, the stories that show your value. In minutes, you'll have short, powerful content for your McCoy Reel, your evidence on video backed by real results. It's designed to grab attention fast and to leave the right impression. You'll know that people are watching, and you'll know that your message is landing. All in one simple link, easy to share, easy to open, impossible to ignore. No guessing, no blank page, no wasting time, just a smarter, faster way for you to show your value. McCoy is free, but with McCoy Pro, you can create targeted reels for specific roles, clients, and audiences. Build your presence, grow your influence, land that next big opportunity. McCoy helps people get you in seconds. Download today from the App Store and Google Play.
Okay, you three, you're in the hot seat. You're going to get 30 seconds. I want to hear your philosophy. Like, make it concise. Tell me, like, what works. And so let's pick on you first, Vanessa.
All right. So sustainable transformation starts with fixing the system first. Change does not fail because of lack of vision, but from mismanaged processes, unclear decision rights, and weak governance. You've heard us all say it, JT. Sorry that I'm echoing the same thing, but the key strategy should always be to evaluate and strengthen the foundations before scaling, then commit to revisiting them on a cyclical, continuous analysis. That's what prevents costly missteps, supports teams, and ensures operations really are resilient and adaptable to face constant change that we're enduring.
I love it. We are hearing a theme, but I think that's a good thing. It means we're on the right track. John, what's your take? Give me your philosophy.
I mean, it's pretty simple. It's communication. I mean, it's not, there's change is constant. You know, my whole life has been changed. You know, people talk about the gig economy. I've been in it for 4 you know, if I did my math right. It is maybe 2 but it's all about change, and it's about understanding the complexities. But the one thing it's really about is the expectation of the time and effort and the end. You know, people don't have that right, like where we're going, what we have to get there, and whether we have enough to get there. So the transition is just that people want to do these epic things overnight. And the reality is, very few things work like that. And when they do, they only stand up for a few minutes. You know, it's really do it. Like I said, if you want to be different, act different. I can do that right now. I could say I'm a different person. You're not going to believe it until I act that way for a while. But I mean, that's fine. So I just think that I think it's overblown. And I think companies rush to solutions. And unfortunately, we're you're talking about global economies and power structures. And, you know, that's an immense task. I'm talking about leadership and getting something done and making an audience engage and have joy. I'm an emotionalist. As much as I do whatever I do, I talk about this more than the process. It's about how am I going to make it feel? Are you going to like it? And are you going to want to do it again?
I love that. And I agree. The theme around communication is so vital. So Jason, your power pitch, what's working? What's your philosophy?
I got to say it's communication, #1 skill for project managers. I love it. But I will say honest assessment by the C-suite or whoever's driving the transformation. If you're not being honest about what your needs are and how mature you think the organization is, you're deluding yourself. You're deluding the rest of it. You're You may hope and pray, and that's not usually a long-term great strategy to have. But I will also say that if you don't have leadership, to John's point as well, and right now I feel, especially maybe it's a generational thing again, the last 20 years, there is a leadership void. And maybe because people do not want to stand into positions of leadership because maybe as Gen Xers, we were beat up for so many years. It's like, you know what? I don't want to be president. I do not. I'm perfectly happy with what I'm doing right now. But if you say that I'm going to, accelerate promotion of people because like the younger generation's like, I want to be a director in 6 months. Do you have the emotional maturity to be that? So if you have any leadership voids across the layers of the organization, your transformation project will get stalled. It will not deliver exactly what you need. So understand, honestly, where are your gaps? And people gaps, for me, are the number one.
Well, Jason, I'm going to jump in here real quick because I always say operate off of fact, not assumption. Too many people, leaders, organizations operate off of assumption. Where does that get them? In true problems.
It's so true.
Course.
And I love it. And I think the theme here too has been holding the executive team accountable. I think it takes a special person to be comfortable doing that. Right. And to know how to do that in a way that isn't going to set them off or, you know what I'm saying? Like there's a skill set there. And I think we do have a little bit of a crisis, Jason, when you think about people that are capable of stepping in the next, wave of leadership roles in the executive sweep. It's going to be interesting. Again, while I'm going to say I think fractional is going to be huge. I think we're going to just see an explosive amount of fractional work for executives like all of you to drop in because of that gap that they're going to have. They're not going to have enough people there.
Just jump in, just what you're saying there is, to your point earlier about maybe you don't want to hear it from within your organization, an external voice. People will listen sometimes more to that than to the internal voices where they might be in competition for roles, or there might be a culture where, they're not comfortable with something and maybe reporting or behind the scenes. Who knows what's happening? That external consultant, even for a small period of time, it could just be like, just get me over the hump, bring it in, develop my methodology, train my people, and goodbye.
That's what I said. That's what you got to do. You got to bring in that fractional to really assess their systems. Because again, that's that other viewpoint. And even though you're probably saying a lot of times the same thing, it sounds softer to them coming from someone else.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Okay, let's get to my drop moment because I don't want to miss it. Folks, this is where my team here is going to drop knowledge bomb wisdom. The one thing that everyone should leave after listening to the show today. What do you want them to take away? And remember, I'm going to start with you, John.
For me, I was thinking while these guys were talking, I work for 50 different companies a year, some of them repetitively, some for years, and I pitch many more. So I'm in the room, I see this dysfunction blaring. I'll be in a pitch and I'll leave the room and go, we don't want that job. They don't know what they want. So the mic drop moment is engage people who know what they're doing and can help you get to where you're going. And in my case, I always tell people, if you're trying to figure out where you're going, I'll help there. I like to be in earlier. I get called a lot when the canoe's in the river sideways and the waterfall's a quarter mile away and they want me to, I'm like, I can help you get over it straight, but I can't tell you what the hell you're doing in the river. So the earlier I can get in, the sooner I can help them decide what's possible with the money and the timeline. That's the place where I thrive. It's because it's the goals are reasonable. It's possible. That's all.
I love it. Jason, what's your mic drop?
For me, it's quality and risk management. If you don't have quality, you don't know what you define by quality, then you don't know exactly what level of compliance or greatness that you want to achieve. And if you don't do holistic risk management, I'm not saying operational or, safety is really big in the energy sector. Mm-hmm. I see that as a huge gap where we say, oh yeah, the risk, someone can get hurt or equipment can get lost. No, let's talk about business risk. Let's be really holistic about this. You tie quality and risk together, you get over the finish line.
Fantastic. Couldn't agree more. And Vanessa, last but not least.
So again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but what leaders really need to do if they want transformation to succeed is focusing on strengthening their foundation before they move forward, really knowing what's working, what's not working. Transformation isn't about adopting something that's new. It's about making sure the existing system can support that change.
I love it. Great themes today. This was such an interesting episode. Folks, all of these Pro Voice experts are on our partner platform, subs.com. And what that means is that you can have them in your back pocket advising you. That's right. For the cost of a cup of coffee, each month, you could be direct messaging them and getting real answers from them. Like I said, it's like having them in your back pocket. So please go check out each of these Pro Voice experts on subs.com. And remember, folks, until next time, if you want to win, you've got to work it daily. But more importantly, if you want to be seen, if you want to be heard, and if you want to be in demand, you need to use your Pro Voice. Go get them.